What's going on, guys? This is Tony with Success is Imminent Coaching and Trading. I passed 2 funded accounts this week with Tradeify and made about $1,000 profit between 2 accounts, or actually on each account. And so I wanted to break down my trades this week so that maybe hopefully you can learn something and maybe possibly apply these things to your own trading and pass some funded accounts or grow your own personal account. This is what we're looking at here. Usually I'll go to the 4 hour or the 1 hour, but I know that we're on all-time highs, so I don't really need to. I know exactly where we're at and how the markets are moving right now. CPI came out higher. Inflation data was not too crazy. It was like 0.1% higher, which is still higher, but it's not something crazy. But PPI did come out quite a bit higher as well. So we had a little bit more reason to start to retrace. I don't think the first trade, which I took on Tuesday night or morning actually, is affected by that because I think the data came out on Wednesday. But something to keep in mind is that we use inflation data and unemployment data to trade as well. Unemployment came out a little bit higher as well too. So yeah, we had a lot of things that caused us more confluences to retrace and come down. Throughout Monday and Sunday and a little bit of Friday, we actually started to distribute, and we had a lot of sell orders being filled out until we hit this manipulation to the upside. We broke to the upside, came back down into range and broke the low. So this is our UTAD, our up thrust action in phase D. Based on our Wyckoff schematics, phase D is the end phase of the schematic and the perfect time for manipulation to come in. So manipulation came in, broke this low, and set us up for a Tuesday trade. So Monday night and Tuesday morning, I was on Asia session looking for a trade, and we caught this trade right here where price broke that low. This is the same low that we were looking at earlier. Came back up, hit the 0.5. I don't immediately take a trade like that. I wait for a distribution to play out, which it did right here. Distribution came in, broke this low. I immediately set an order for sells, especially off of this VWAP, because Asia session loves to trend off of the VWAP. And if it doesn't, it will just end up coming back and forth and chopping. But Asia session does trend sometimes, and it trends off of that VWAP a lot. So I'm gonna go ahead and break this down. The reason why I put my stop loss here and not up here above this high is because I'm very aware that we could end up hitting a manipulation to the low for us to break to the high for a reaccumulation based on our Wyckoff schematics. And so if I'm looking at this the way that I'm entering based off the fact that this is a distribution. I think that sellers are in control. So I'm gonna take a sell off of the first retrace, which is right here. And I'm going to put my stop loss a little bit back into the range in case this is a reaccumulation back up. That's going to break this high. And so that would make no sense for me to take a loss that big. So I put my stop there, and I ended up letting it run down until it breaks this low, in which case, once it broke this low, I put my stop loss to break even or maybe a little bit above this high. Once I put that above the high a little bit, I let it run until I took a profit on the -2 based on the leg up here on which we reversed. So this is called a standard deviation fib. Essentially, I took this first change. So once we came back up and we started to run back down, this first leg where we actually started to break this low over here. So this low right here got broken over here, and the first leg that caused it is this right here. So I ended up taking the standard deviation fib from the 0, this lower wick up here down there, and this higher wick up here on the top to the 1. And so my targets are the -2, -2.5, and the -4. My full TP is this -4 down here. Now, what ends up happening is we take a profit on the -2, and that was a 1 to 3.5 about, or 1 to 3. So this is a winning trade. I put a stop loss there. I let it run down to the -4, but it never hits the -4, and instead it retraces back up. Now, what we will do with our stop loss is we're not going to just immediately move it up to here because we're scared. We want to give it room to do its thing. So if I see it coming back up with a lot of strength, that's obviously a bad sign. And there's going to be a lot of buyers if we're getting candles like this and a lot of retracement like this. We're probably going to break this high. But I wanted to see what it's going to do once it retrace. Again, I wait for the retrace, then I move my stop loss to above that high in case it wants to break up. In that case, it more than likely is going to come up to here or here. And so I don't want to miss out on these profits right here when it's very high probability that it's just going to close it out. So I end up moving my stop loss to the high up here, which it never actually hits, and instead it comes back down. Now you can close out your trade right here, but for me, I feel like it's high probability for it, if it comes back down here, for it to come back down and hit the full TP. That never actually happens though, and instead we get the retrace. What I expected it for it to do is retrace a little bit, then start to come back down, break that low, then hit our TP, but it never does. And instead it comes over, comes back and forth like this, and then it hits this third point. So we get 3 points right here. For me, that signals a lot of buying pressure. There's a brick wall going on. There's a lot of absorption. And so I think a reversal is going to come in. So once it gave us this little retrace once again, I ended up stopping out completely right there. I exited the trade, took my win, and let the move play out by itself. So that's about a 1 to 5.5 TP, full TP, with a 1 to 3 being the first TP. So that was our first trade on Tuesday morning, Asia session, based on a trending VWAP trade in the Wyckoff distribution schematic. So then once, I believe Wednesday is coming around, right? Or no, this is Tuesday. So Tuesday's New York session comes around, and what we end up doing is we end up opening New York, coming up and testing the VWAP, in which we actually started to reverse, and we took off the New York Open. So we sweeped New York Open, came back down, broke this low, confirmed the redistro once again. I fibbed up the redistro. Fib. And so you can see we hit the 0.5. I ended up taking this trade, the 0.5, right away because I know the VWAP is right there. I take my stop loss above that high. We end up getting a 3.5 TP, I believe. I'm not sure what I'm targeting, but if you want to go ahead and target the way that we usually target is, I'm going to either take this to this for the manipulation leg and aim for the -2 and -4. So there's one TP that you can take with the standard deviation, or you can also take the this leg right here, this one to low, the start to this change and this break of the low. And again, -2 and -2.5 and -4 right here. This would have been a full TP. So whatever you choose, 1 to 5 is usually my target. So I probably would have taken a full TP right here, in which we actually bottom ticked it, sniped it, and ended up taking that. So New York session isn't over. We actually see it break this high and start to reverse. I know from experience that once it starts to do that, we're pretty much in for another retrace. So where I would usually put my standard deviation is either here or here. So same thing. And I want to wait, honestly. So I let it break the high, but I kind of wait for it to show what it wants to do. I see that it's starting to reaccumulate, so it ends up breaking to the high and gives me the retrace for me to enter right here. I put my stops below this low just in case, but usually you would put your stops below this low because what I ended up doing is pretty much an LPS entry. An LPS entry is essentially the last point in which buyers or sellers assume that the value is more or less valuable. So I take this 0.5 on this little reaccumulation. Let me do a fib or something, I market order it. I let it run. I take a profit probably at the 0.2 or the VWAP. So I take a TP right here, more than likely. So take profit, and then I break even stop loss. Then I took a full TP. It looks like once it hit Asia, we ended up coming around and hitting -2.5. Usually what I would do is I would probably just take a full TP at this 0.25 up here. And that would have been the end of the day as well, and it would have been a 1 to 7. So it's very possible to hold your trade through Asia session. That's fine. I do that all the time. But the fact that it hit -2.5 for me is probably where I was going to take a full TP. So I'm just going to assume that I did. But first TP was 1 to 4. Second TP was 1 to 7. So yeah, a second really good trade for Tuesday. Third trade, I'll go ahead and break down. Let's see. So what we end up doing is we break this high on Tuesday night into Wednesday morning, and what ends up happening is we get a reaccumulation. Our reaccumulation confirms. More than likely, you could do another STDV standard deviation charting, and you can either take this to right here, or you can also take it to right here as well. Either way worked out. There's different ways that people use the standard deviation fib. If it were me, I would have probably done something like that. That's just me though. I would have done something like this, and I would have done something like this. And so this would have been my full TP up here, 0.25 or -2.5 and the -2. But somewhere along the line over here, I probably would have taken a partial. So if I were to have taken a trade, I'm not sure if I did or not, but if it comes back up and it breaks this VWAP, starts to trend, breaks this high, the distro's there, it starts to come back in. Either I'm taking this trade right here with stops below these lows, and then a full TP, like we said, up here to the 2.5 for a 1 to 7, or I'm going to probably take it to this low right there. So a 1 to 10 or something like that. Now, if I see it retrace back in like this, where I take this trade, comes back up, it starts to retrace, it starts to downtrend, I'm more than likely going to move my stop loss to break even. I'm not always perfect with that though, so either it stop loss broke me here, or I'm going to wait for it to retrace, and then I'm going to stop loss to break even afterwards. Nothing is, it's not the wrong way to do it. Either way, it's not the wrong way, and either way, I probably got stopped out right here at break even. So I'm just going to assume that I broke even before it came down to touch stop loss. But what ends up happening anyways is we come back up for another break of the high, comes back down, LPS entry right here, broke this high, came back in. Again, we can take this long and try to get this entry in. Now, once we get that long right there at that high and stops below here, we're still aiming for those targets, the 0.25, and we're gonna have that that TP, that first TP probably gonna be around the -4 or so, So -4 first TP right here, and stop loss probably back to break even around here. So stop loss move to break even. So first TP looks like it hit a, this would be a 1 to 18 type of trade, and the first TP was 1 to 4.5, so 4.5, or somewhere around there. Where's that 4? Yeah, just about here. So about 1 to 5 is the first TP. The full TP being this -2.5 or so, or -2. If you hit the -2, I'm not sure if that hit right away or if this hit exact, but no, it didn't. Came close. But again, if it gets that close, you can take a profit. You can close your trade out and count it as a winning trade. That's fine. It's not a big deal. If you get that close, you should be just closing out your trade. You're fine. But that would have been a 1 to 14. Now, same thing right here. You could have taken this trade, this LPS up until it says no. Once it says no, it starts to distribute, comes into Wednesday and starts to come down really far. I'm going to go ahead and remove my drawings. I'm going to reset it to this, get my fib out. We come back into demand, 0.5 and 0.8. Where's my 0.8? 0.8. Now, this is the thing too, is that we have just mitigated this this reaccumulation down here at the 0.5. It's very possible still for it to come back down and start to redistro, especially if it comes up here and then starts to drop dramatically like it did on this leg. But again, still very possible, since we're at all-time highs, for it to run back up and begin the process of reaccumulating like it did here. This is a very dramatic drop, so in my opinion, I would have been very cautious of it breaking to the lows and continuing lower. But again, it's all-time high season, the market conditions, so this is still, this trade is perfectly fine. Once it comes back down into demand after breaking these lows, and we end up actually hitting, let's see, 5 a.m. for Asia to 8:30. Cool. So New York opens, and we end up getting not only, let me see if this leg ends up. We'll do top to bottom. STDV. So we hit, around, we go past the -2.5 and the -2. We actually hit the -2, I believe, and bounced off almost. But it actually broke through lower, and we ended up getting to this 0.5, 0.8 area in which we actually bottom ticked that. So you could technically, based on our Wyckoff theory, take this trade right here and take that high to, like somewhere up there for a 1 to 12. But again, I like to wait for confirmations and stuff, especially after big giant moves with the opposite side having a lot of strength like this, and especially after it's kind of like giving us this really crazy selling pressure where it shouldn't really be going down this far with this leg. But that's fine. If you end up wanting to take that trade, you can for a 1 to 14. But what I would probably have done is wait for it to retrace, wait for signs of absorption, wait for buyers to show themselves as strong. You can either wait for the break of this high, or you can take this trade like right here, like this. Now, another thing that you could really do very well is wait for it to touch the VWAP and confirm the breakout above the VWAP instead of trying to enter like this here, because it's very possible that it could reject off of the VWAP and start to come down. So instead, what you could do is wait for it to break above. Once it's broken above, you can take this to the longs, stops below the lows, and yeah, then you can take that trade up. Again, if you want to use your standard deviation, you can. Standard deviation is a good way to target when it's all-time highs and there's nothing really to target. You can either do something like that or you can do something like this. For now, I'll just take it to there, and we'll do -4 as a full target, and that's a 1 to 7. That's perfect for me. We never actually hit that, but you know, we end up taking a profit at the -2 or above this high. I probably would have taken this as the first TP anyways. This high right here. Once it comes back down, I'm likely going to break even right here. And not just break even, but I want to put it below the low. So then it would have went up. We would have, you know, had multiple places to take profits if we wanted to. Either that or and actually you probably would have wanted to take your stop loss to below the breakout and not down there below that low. So I would have probably taken it to something like below there. So that's a lot better of a risk to reward ratio. There's a -4 right there. You can also do, like I said, that high to this low. And then you can target this -2.5. And we actually do hit this -2.5 right here on Thursday. So this trade right here was first TP here. And you can either take the full profit at the -2 or the -2.5. Let's just say you did it at the -2 to be safe. You would have taken your TP around here instead of over here on Thursday. So as far as risk management goes, that seems to be about it. I probably would have, once it broke this low down here, I would have probably taken my TP or my stop loss and moved it over here, just to secure this profit around here. So first TP was a 1 to 5, 1 to 5.5, and full TP was a 1 to 13. Already the week has been going very well. Price action has been very, very predictable. So Thursday comes around, Wednesday night, not much happens. It kind of just waves around VWAP. Like I said, some of these nights with Asia session, it likes to just chop back and forth on VWAP. But what ends up happening is Thursday, we open back up on 8:30. We break to the high. Already I'm thinking that it's going to, you know, run to all-time highs. If you look at the 15-minute chart, go to Thursday, that's exactly what it does. It looks like we already confirmed this really big reaccumulation right here as well. If you can see what I'm talking about. So I'm going to fib that out. And you can see that the main area of demand now is this 0.5 and this 0.8. So now that we've broken this high, we're very adamant about taking longs and following the LPS, but it's very possible that it comes back down and touches the 0.5 like it has now. So this Thursday, 8:30 comes around and we end up breaking this high. I'm obviously looking for this main target for the reaccumulation up. We've already broken supply right here with this redistro right here. So yeah, we're pretty much set for longs. Now, New York Open does what it usually does, and it manipulates. So first it came down, started testing around the VWAP, then starts to come back up. Once it breaks this, once it's showing that it wants to break to this high, you can take this trade. Either you can take this trade up like this, and the stop's below the low. You might have been stopped out here if you were, you know, like right onto it, or you know, maybe some brokers might have stopped you out right there, and that's fine. Maybe you got stopped out there at a 1 to something. I don't know. I'm not sure what the I'm not sure what the loss would have been, or what the target would be. You could do something like this: STDV, standard deviation, 0.25, 0.4. You could do like 1 to 6 right here, and you would have taken that loss. That's fine. That's like $100 loss, $200 loss maybe, and you would have just waited for it to break out again. It breaks out again, you could take that long again. So take that long, stops below the low. Oops, that's a short. So take that long. Stops below the low. Once again, targeting that 0.25. If that's too low, like a 1 to 4, if that's not what your risk reward is looking for, you can do something like this for a 1 to 9. But anyways, it comes back down. It touches break even. Would I have broken even at that point? I'm not too sure. Probably not. That would have I would have probably been willing to take that loss just because it hasn't even touched the 0.2 yet, or the -2, I mean. But once it does up here, basically it comes back up. It kind of doesn't really touch it, but gets close to it, really close. That's where I'm definitely gonna break even. So I'm gonna assume that that was a break even. You can also take your profit right here. Once it gets close to these levels, I'm more than open to just taking I'm closing out whatever I need to close out. So I'm going to consider that I take profit. I'm going to consider that a win. It comes down and starts to redistro. That's fine. It's around noon, where it ends up giving us this distro basically. I can't really find a third drive, but it UTADs, breaks the low. You can again standard deviation leg like that, or you can do something like this. Both work. They usually line up like this, but yeah, -2 and -2.5 get hit right here. Would you have taken shorts? I'm not too sure. I would have probably considered this to be like the absorption of this micro reaccumulation right here, with the 0.5 being hit and getting absorbed. And you can definitely take the trade off of that like this. That's fine. Just something that I wouldn't do as of right now. But anyways, it comes back down to redistro. It gives us the manipulation to the high. So that's pretty cool. If I saw something like this and it starts to really break down like this, I'm probably taking that short. So short. And I'm making my stop loss, somewhere back into the range. I'm definitely not taking this full loss. I'm basically making the bet that it's going to run down to some sort of LPS or mitigation, in which case this is my main targets back here. Since it's coming back in, I don't really need STDV, but you can also do standard deviation like this. So your first target would have been there, otherwise it would have been down there, which it never hits, and that's fine. Sometimes your trades aren't going to win, that's fine. But yeah, my first target would have definitely been this 0.5 or this 0.5 right here. This 0.5. In which case the 0.5 of this lines up with the VWAP perfectly, so I probably would have taken a profit right here at the first 1 to 4. So 1 to 4 TP right here, take profit. Definitely breaking even after that. Stop loss break even. In which case we have taken a good trade there. So once it comes up and breaks this high, that's a really good sign, but it actually just rejects off of it and starts to just run down again. In which case I'm probably going to stop and just wait to see what the move is. In which case, throughout the day, we don't really get anything. It goes back and forth. Friday comes around, Thursday night comes around. Asia session. I'm probably thinking Asia session wants to trend up and break this high again, but it doesn't. Instead, we got that CPI, PPI, inflation data news, and the unemployment data news giving us a lot of reasons to pull back, and we end up breaking this low. Now, we break this low at around 8 p.m., and so that gives me a big redistribution to play off of. Either you can take that short off that first retracement, but that's not always the best thing to do, especially during Asia session where it chops a lot. Instead, what you can do is kind of just, you can wait for a better entry. So for me, that better entry, I did take this trade too, is once it started to run down like this, instead of breaking this high, and it started to downtrend down here, and instead of hitting this like equilibrium and running back up, it ends up breaking lower and lower. Then it starts to hit this low. I took this short right here with stops above that high, and my target was, I'm not sure what my target was, but I'm gonna assume I used these schematics back here. So first target was probably 0.5 over here. Either that or this one as well. There's a 0.5 right here as well. So full TP was probably something like this, 1 to 4. I probably wouldn't like that because 1 to 4 is not what I'm looking for. I want my risk to reward ratio to be at least a 1 to 5. So I probably would have aimed for this, either this 0.8 down here or lower. But my first TP would have definitely been either this 0.5 or this 0.5 down here. In which case I'm just going to say and be conservative, say I took my first TP here, take profit, and my stop loss break even. Now, once price came back up to this high and starts to test it and breaks through here, I'm more than likely going to close my trade out. So I'm going to assume that the trade just closed out there. So I missed out on all of this, but that's fine. I'm here to protect my profits a lot more than I am to try to take every dollar that I can. So as far as this goes, my first TP was 1 to 2.5. Not too great, but not too bad either. And looks like on Friday morning, as Asia session kind of started to keep going on, you can also take this short here. This is a pretty good short to take as well. You can also take this trade right here with stops inside the range. A little bit riskier, especially with the size of the schematic, but still viable, not too bad. So I'll take the trade something like this. Again, probably targeting something like that, 1 to 5. In which case you would have taken a TP right here. Either first TP would have been, yeah, if I saw it coming back up, I would have broken even on my my entry. I'm just gonna, give it the benefit of the doubt and say that I entered late, because that happens sometimes, and your stop loss gets hit. Let's say that happens. Even then, usually when I break even stop loss, I don't always exactly break even. I actually move it to like the high, or something of that nature. But yeah, I'm just gonna say that it stopped you out. But that first TP would have probably either been maybe here. You could take that first TP here, or you could take it down here at that low. Either way works. It's just some people are more conservative, and there's a high risk for it to reverse as well as it comes back down into this reaccumulation. But we'll just assume that stopped us out. But this would have been a 1 to 2.5, and full TP would have been 1 to 5. Then Friday comes along, and it looks like there's no trade Friday. I mean, there looks like there's actually is a trade because it hit the 0.8. And looks like 8:30 came around. We smacked the 0.8, came back up, started to come up, didn't break the high, came back down. Then we started to break that high. If you really wanted to take that trade, you could take that trade like right here, I guess. Stops below the low. Target would be, I'm not too sure, something like what's in the past, either this high. Let's just assume this high. Just for an easy target with, something like this as a first TP, this 0.5 over here, or this low could also be a TP. So take profit. So that first TP would have been a 1 to 4 TP, and the full target would be 1 to 8. Then you could break even stop loss. You would have broken even, but that would have been a winning trade. Albeit it's not the best trade because there's also the VWAP in the way, so you could also take a profit at the VWAP, then break even if you wanted to be safer. Perfectly fine. Either way works. VWAP is something to be very careful about. So yeah, I would definitely do something like that. If it does something like this where it breaks down and then begins to come back and forth like that, I'm more than likely going to just wait it out and wait for the real move. Once I saw something like this, it breaks the high. I'm kind of waiting for it to break up, but it never does. Instead, it comes back down, breaks this low. That's very interesting. If you did take a trade there, which you can, especially with the new data coming out, you might have taken a loss there, maybe, if you took that trade. Usually I wait for the candle to close below with strength. So if you did, maybe it would have been like right here. The stop's below the high. You could target lower, like a 1 to 6 or something. Again, you would look in the past and look for something to target. You could even target that low down there, or something like this. The 0.8 right here, 1 to 10. But that never happens, and it ends up stopping you out if you did take that trade. And comes back around to the upside, breaks to the high. You can also take that trade. That's fine too. Again, stops below the low, and you can target as high as you need. Like up here, let's say that's a 1 to 4.5. So maybe like target, what's that? Target the middle, 1 to 6. That's better. So that full target could be good. What ended up happening is, I guess, take profit right here. Right here, and I probably would have began to break even stop loss right here once it started to come down and start to reaccumulate, just in case it fell through. So yeah, those are the trades for this week. I know it's a little bit of a longer video, but Hope it helps you guys out. It's a free video with a lot of great information. If you're curious about any of the terms that I used, or curious about more in depth of how I use these things, or you're confused about some of these ideas, let me know. Again, you can sign up for the mentorship and teaching, and join the private group chat with all the other students. And I can teach you how to make money in the markets consistently without losing it. So thank you guys for watching. Tony with Success is Imminent Coaching and Trading.